Our film begins with Tess on her way to her new home, which will be a month's rent, and she reaches the address of the place in her car. And the world becomes dark. Tess enters the password to lock the door, so you can take the key, but you can't find it. She tries to communicate with the application from which she rented the house, but the number remains blocked. Tess gets annoyed, and she decides that she prefers to wait in her car until she finds a solution. Suddenly you see the light of the house open, so you look out of the window, and you see a strange man inside the house. So he knocked on the door with all force, so the young man opens up to her and asks her what she wants. She tells him that the house is supposed to be hers and that she is renting it, but the stranger tells her that he is the one who rented the house and that it hasn't been a month yet, but Tess hides the application from which she rented the house. And it is the same address, so they are both shocked and know he set them up, and that there was a problem in the belt. The tenant asks her to enter and rest until they see how they will act, so she enters worried. The second tenant is also nervous, and he introduces her to himself. That his name is sufficient, and he brings her tea, and then he sits with her. Tess asks him to go into the bathroom, and she keeps looking everywhere to be reassured. And then she comes out of the bathroom and asks him to show her his rent receipt from the application, and she makes sure that he is not lying, so they think about what might be the protocol that they are supposed to follow in these situations, so he offers her that she will spend the night with him until the next day. She tells him that she will not be able to do that, and that she will sit in her car until she finds a hotel. He tells her that if she is in her place, it is impossible for him to go out at this time, and he sits in his car and it's what I saw what the neighborhood looked like in the morning and it was really scary. She gets worried and decides that she will stay with him until she finds a hotel, and she calls more, but she finds that all the rooms are booked. So he tells her that there is a medical conference in the city, and that all hotel reservations are sure to be complete, so she has to agree to sleep with him for one night. Not on the condition that she sleeps on the couch, but Tess tells her that he cannot let a girl sleep on the couch while he is sleeping on the bed and design that she sleeps in his room. Tess tells him that she can't sleep on someone else's sheet, so he has to wash the sheet and wait for it to dry. Tess enters to take a shower and then goes out to sit with him until the sheets dry, so he asks her about the reason for her presence in the city, and she tells him that she has an interview as a researcher for documentaries reports, and that she meets a famous author, and he asks her how about the documentaries that the author wrote, and it appears that he knows one of them, so she is impressed by him and knows that he is interested in this type of films, and this is because no one watches them, and she tells him that the new film talks about the history of music in the city and the founders of the bands. So Tess tells her that she is supposed to interview him because one of the founders of a certain band in the city makes you more impressed and feels safe, and starts dealing with a lie of openness and agrees to drink with him. She falls asleep, but suddenly, in the middle of the night, she hears the sound of the door of her room opening, so she quickly gets up from her place, but she cannot find anyone. Suddenly, you hear a voice while he is in pain, and you know that he is having a nightmare. She tries to wake him up, and he has a huge cyst and fights with her, so Tess apologizes to him and enters her room and locks herself the door. On the second day, Tess prepares herself for the job interview, and you find a message from a bag telling her about it. He spent a nice time with her, and he would love to see her again, and he tells her about the code to lock the house, so she can give him the key. Tess smiles and is happy that she met someone new and goes to her job interview, and there she sits with the author who fascinates her, and it works with her, and then you ask her where she lives. Tess tells her that she is in Baltimore. The author is shocked and tells her that she cannot live in this neighborhood, and she should walk as fast as possible, but Tess does not care about her words and tells her that she has a roommate and that she is happy with the place. And Tess returns home, and there she notices for the first time the neighborhood in which she lives, and you find that all the houses are deserted and what they look like, and you reach the house. And she gets out of her car, but suddenly a stranger comes running towards her, shouting and telling her not to enter the house. She is very afraid and runs quickly towards the house. She takes the key and locks the door on herself, and the stranger kept knocking on the door and telling her to get out of the house quickly until he walked away. You call the police and tell them what happened, but the policewoman tells her that they don't have any units available, and she will not be able to follow her limit. Annoyed, Tess hangs up, and she prefers to watch the window until she is sure that there is no one outside. Then you enter, but you can't find tissues, so you keep looking for them everywhere until you reach the basement door, and there you find a lot of tissues, so you go down to get one of them. But suddenly the cellar door locks on her and it only opens from the outside. She searches for the mobile phone, but discovers that she forgot it in the hall, and you meet. The key to the house is also in her pocket, and she knows that he won't even be able to open the door to get her out. She sees the cellar window and tries to open it, but it stays locked, so she has to look for anything to break it with or open the door. And Asuna is not looking to see a rope coming out of the precautionary opening. So the goat pulls the rope and finds a secret door that opens in front of her, and it remains part of the precaution. And Tess finds that the world is very dark. She decides that she should not act like a horror movie, and you enter a dark room in a cellar in a stranger's house, but curiosity kills her, and she brings a mirror to put it in the direction of the lamp, to reflect light, and it remains as a searchlight to see what is inside the room. Suddenly, you see a locked room, so you open it, and you will find a bed, a camera and buckets. Tess is very afraid. And you know if something strange is going on in the basement, and you get outside quickly. Suddenly, you see a bag standing in front of the house, so you call him to open. Buzzing, and he takes a bag of house keys and takes it out of the basement. As soon as she gets out of the basement, she collapses with fear and hysterically responds to her needs. And she tells the bag that she saw, and it won't be a bag that you can believe. And he asks her to calm down. And Benzel himself, he sees the room in the basement. Tess refuses to go down with him, and please stand in front of the door. And then you call on him. But he does and respond, so you worry so much. And before the door closes, you support him in the chair. And she goes down to look for a bag, but she can't find him in the room. Suddenly, she finds the door of another room, so she opens it and finds a ladder on his bed, so she turns on her mobile phone while she is calling for asterisk 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 asterisk, and she sees a corridor full of iron cages, and around them, blood. She is very afraid and keeps calling on the palm of the one who blooms in front of her and tells her that one woman has bitten him, so you are surprised and afraid more. And you ask him to get out of the house quickly, but suddenly a deformed woman appears. Her appearance is very scary, and she is not wearing anything, and it attacks asterisk 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 asterisk, and it becomes very strong, so much so that she hits his head on caution and kills him after a while. In another place, we see Tom, who works in preparing TV programs. He is walking in his car while he is listening to songs, and suddenly a call comes to him from the company's lawyer, and she calls him to his friends, who tell him that he has been accused in a rape case against the broadcaster of the program, and that she refuses to work with them as long as he is there. She tells him that the company will take the claim seriously, and that even if he wins the case, he will be dismissed, and one of his friends tells him that a magazine will publish the news the next day. So they collapsed after he lost his job and his reputation, and he goes to the director of Saruta's administration, who tells him that in a very short period of time he will go bankrupt, and he won't have money with him, and it is suggested that he reduce his expenses and sell his house. So he asks him about his property, so he tells the manager that it will only suffice him for a few months, and then he goes bankrupt also, and then he submits to the director his resignation and tells him to look for someone else, and Tom walks away sad and feels that all people abandoned him and that even the plot he nominated himself and a case was filed against him, so Tom goes to his lawyer and files a defamation case. He entrusts him with his defense against the rape case. Then he decides that he travels to the place where he owns a house in order to sell it, and he can spend it on the lawyer, and he goes to the company that has the key to the house that he connects to, and what will be the same house he was in, and he enters the house and finds the basement door open, and he sees travel bags everywhere. He tries to find out who was responsible for renting his house, who was the last person in the house, so they tell him that he was the last tenant. It has been there for weeks, and it is impossible for someone to live in the house. Tom is very surprised and goes around the whole house calling out to anyone who might be in it. But he can't find it, so he decides to go out with his friend who is from the same city. And they go together to a bar. There, they ask his friend about the truth of the news that is being reported about him. Was he really raped Almzaya or not? Tom tells him that they just had sex with each other, and that it was this at first, but then they had a relationship, and that he didn't know that she considered it rape. Tom drinks too much and then comes home. There, he calls the performer and apologizes to her for what happened, and asks her to call him so that he can apologize to her again, and then he sleeps. The next day, Tom wakes up to the sound of the alarm, and he sees the key to a car, Tess. Suddenly, he hears a voice coming from the basement. He opens the cellar door and calls out if there is anyone, but no one responds to it. So he enters Tess's room, and he looks at her need, and he finds her laptop. So he opens it and knows her name from it. Then he hears a voice coming from the basement, so he opens the door. He threatens the one who is present that he has a gun and that he will kill anyone he meets. Then he takes a knife from the kitchen and takes a flashlight and goes down to see the cellar, but he can't find anything, and suddenly he sees the mirror in the middle of the cellar, so he looks at the precaution and finds the rope that opens the door. So he pulls Tom and finds the door opened, so he is very happy and goes back to the house. And he works with a sense of the basement, and does he calculate from the area of the house, and he knows that it is calculated. So he decides that he goes down to measure it, and this is in order to know the total area on which he will sell the house on the basis of it, and then he takes the meter with him and goes down from the basement again and discovers the door behind him, the staircase, and he gets more happy. And he prefers to walk in the corridors, and he sees the room in which the bed and the camera are. He also sees the corridors that are full of boxes with blood on them. But he doesn't care and keeps measuring until suddenly he reaches a room with a TV, and the smell of the room is very dirty, and the program that works is how a mother breastfeeds her baby in the right way, on the importance of breastfeeding. Tom is surprised and goes outside the room to complete the measurement. Suddenly, he hears someone's voice from far away, so it gets very lame, and he takes the knife out of his pocket, but she falls out of his hand because of the tension, so he takes her and directs the scout. So he finds the same mutilated woman who killed Tess, so he quickly runs away from the other side, until he finds himself falling into a hole under the ground. And he is locked in a cage, and Tess blooms while telling him to shut up, and it is useless to be tense in her presence, and then it blooms on the day of the 6th. The terrifying woman will have a box of milk in her hands, and you still want him to drink from it. So she tells him a goat to drink, but Tom curses the wild woman and screams in fear. So the woman starts the can and drinks from it, and she still wants Tom to imitate Tess, but Tom refuses. Tess tells him that she considers them her children, and she didn't want more than that, but Tom determined not to drink, so the savage woman comes down and takes him to another place and leaves the cage open, so she bounced quickly and walked behind them quietly, and the savage woman arrives with Tom to the room where the TV is on, and it appears that nothing is shown on television except for the breastfeeding program only, and the savage woman sleeps Tom on the floor, and she keeps trying to breastfeed him herself, and you take advantage of the opportunity to escape, but she flop, and the savage woman senses it, so she runs away quickly, and you try to open the cellar door, but you discover that it is closed again. So you break the sound of the window and run away from it. At the last moment, a stranger comes to pull her. The savage woman blooms behind them as she tries to catch her and runs away. She hears the stranger, who is the same person who guessed her from the house. He tells her that this woman has been in the house for a long time and that she needs to get out of the area as soon as possible, so she tells him that there is a person trapped inside and they must take him out, so the stranger tells her to think about herself and quickly run away from the place, otherwise, you will keep chasing her, and he guesses that she prefers to be in the area at night, and she is notified that she escaped in the first place. Tess hears his words and walks a long way to reach a gas station. There, you call the police and tell them what happened, but none of the police believed her, especially since she did not have the key to the house, and they tell her that they can't break into the house and walk and leave her, so she enters the house herself. After you break the buzz, and you take the Arabic key and go out to ride it. Suddenly, you find the savage woman standing in front of her, so you flop it in Arabic, and you enter the house to save Tom. At this time, Tom hears the voice of someone asking for help. He prefers walking in the corridors until he reaches the room. An old man is sleeping on the bed, and from so much fatigue, he can't speak, and he stays consulting him about something to answer. From the office, the old man opens the drawer and takes out a gun. Tom is very afraid, but the old man points the gun at him and kills himself. Tom takes the gun and looks at the room, and finds a large number of tapes recorded by many girls. It appears that the old man used to kidnap girls and photograph them in the room where the bed and the camera are. Tom gets very scared and quickly goes out of the room. He has the gun with him, and someone's voice is heard. He came from outside. He hits the fire, and he discovers that she is being tested, so he removes it and runs away with it quickly outside the house, and the stranger sees them. He hides them in his place for a day, but Tom is determined to take Tess to the hospital, and this is because he was the reason for what happened to her. But the stranger tells them that the wild woman roams the area at night, and they must wait until the morning, and she has been living at home with her father for 50 years, and that the father preferred to leave many children, and the children wait until they grow up and rape them, until they become pregnant and have other children, until he reach the savage woman who they see. Tess asks him if he can guarantee that she will not know where they are here, so he tells her that he has been living here for 15 years, and she has not come to him once. But suddenly, the savage woman, behind him and with her strength, cut off his armor with her hands only. Tom runs away quickly. He leaves Tess, who runs after him, but she is very slow, and they reach a dead end, and suddenly they find a ladder. They go out and bring Tom to the end, but he can't find any escape, and the savage woman remains behind them. So you think about the gun he has. So they see Tom, but because of the tension, and the gun falls from him in the street, and the savage six approach them. Tom tells Tess that he has no choice, and he will be able to escape on his own. But it needs a distraction factor. Tom removes Tess and throws her off a ladder to make the wild woman jump after her. Indeed, the savage woman jumps after Tess, and Tom flees quickly, but he finds that the savage woman is in the back of a goat, and it is easy to beat her, and he notices that Tess is still breathing, so he removes it quickly, and he apologizes to her for what he did. But suddenly the savage woman rises from her place and kills him, and then she plumps Tess, and she cries when she sees her own wound. Tess is amazed at the wild woman's treatment of her as if she were her own child, but she knows that she will not leave her, and you will keep her locked up with her forever. And she sees Tom's gun next to her, and the wild mother is finally killed by it, and she flees from the place completely. And Tess lives unlike Tom, who was a selfish person, and he decided to sacrifice everything for himself. And don't forget to subscribe to the Ladybug Synopsis channel.